What's going on, guys, and welcome back. I'm Mike Ashworth, and today we are talking about 5 more kayak fishing tips that really could help you out on the water. Alright, so about 6 months ago, I did a video called 5 kayak fishing tips for beginners from a beginner. Now, if you haven't seen that video, I will post a link above. It's definitely worth checking out, especially if you are new to kayaking. Now, I posted that video about a month or two after I started kayaking. It was really important for me to post that as a beginner when I first got out onto the water and what I learned, because I wanted to share that perspective with you from a beginner. So at this point now, I have been kayaking for somewhere around that 7-8 month mark, and I've had a few people that have asked if I can update that list or give a few more tips and some of my thoughts on kayak fishing now that I have a little bit more experience. Now, I absolutely 100% still believe that I am a beginner kayaker, but I have gained some experience over the last 8 months. And I do get to fish quite a bit more often than most people, than the average fisherman. I generally fish 2 to 3 days a week, so I have gained quite a bit of experience over that time. So that's what I want to share with you today is 5 more kayak fishing tips that I've learned over the last 8 months of kayak fishing that might help you out on the water. All right, number 5 is learn your kayak. Now, every single kayak on the market is going to be different from each other, and every single kayak is going to be different depending on who's in the kayak, depending on your height and your weight and how much you load your kayak and what you put in your kayak. Every kayak is going to react differently to each person. So it's really important that you figure out your kayak for you. And you want to figure out things like, how shallow can you go? Now, that's something that you definitely want to figure out if you're ever fishing on an outgoing tide, and you need to know, if you go back into these marshes and the tide goes out, are you going to have enough water to get back? Because you definitely don't want to be dragging your kayak, through the water over a mile because, you can't get shallow enough and you can't, paddle your kayak through that shallow water. Another thing that you're going to want to figure out is how your kayak maneuvers. Can you turn into those really, really quick pockets? How quick can your kayak turn? Do you need to make these really wide turns to get into areas? And that's really, really important if you're fishing inside the marshes or on lakes where you kind of got to get into specific areas. Now, you're also going to want to know, how stable is your kayak? Now, I highly suggest when you're in a safe area and you're out there and you're in a good position, to take that kayak and lean as far as you can in both directions and figure out how far you can go before that kayak starts to get really wobbly and shaky and sketchy and before it's about to flip. Now, that's really, really good to know. If you ever get into choppy water and the kayak is kind of moving around, you'll know where that point is before you have to worry about your kayak flipping. And it's so much better to figure it out in a safe environment than when you absolutely have to, because you're going through some really nasty water. Now, these are all things that you want to figure out before you have to figure them out. You don't want to be in an emergency situation where you're dealing with a lot of things and you don't really know how well your kayak operates or the capabilities of your kayak. You want to know the capabilities before you have to, before you're in that situation where it absolutely matters. Another thing that's nice to figure out is if you can stand in your kayak. Can you stand and fish? Can you stand and paddle? Those are really, really important, which actually brings us to our next topic. Number 4, learn to stand up in your kayak. Now, I get it. Now, I absolutely understand that not every kayak you can stand up in. There's a lot of sit-in style kayaks that are pretty much impossible to stand up in unless you have incredible balance. But even then, chances of you fishing while standing up or paddling while standing up, yeah, good luck. But if you have a stable kayak, one that you could possibly stand up, it is really, really nice to learn how to stand up on your kayak. Learn how to stand up, learn how to paddle while standing, learn how to fish while standing, learn how to cast while standing. All of those things are really, really important. Now, when you're in a kayak and you're low to the water and you look out, you're going to get reflections on the water and your visibility isn't great. You can see a few feet around the kayak, but if you stand up, you have a much higher vantage point. You can see much, much further. You can see into the water deeper. And all of that really, really helps you when you're trying to locate fish. Specifically, if you are in the marshes and you are trying to locate redfish, it is really nice to get high up on the water where you can see that grass line. You can see much further into the water, and you can locate those fish that you wouldn't be able to see if you were sitting down. So it's really nice to be able to stand up, really check out the area, fish while you're standing, learn how to cast while you're standing, and paddle and make your way through those marshes. It's also really, really nice to learn to stand when you are out on a lake and you're bass fishing and you need to, get your lures and your baits out into specific areas or under trees. You can just see so much better. And it's way easier to find fish while you're standing. Now, even on super stable kayaks, it takes a little bit of practice to learn how to stand and actually do all of those things and cast and really fish properly. So, practice that, try it, give it a shot. It's really, really nice and super beneficial to learn how to stand up while you're kayaking. So yeah, learn how to stand up and fish, learn how to cast, learn how to paddle, learn how to set the hook on a fish while you're standing without falling out of your kayak. All of that is really, really important, and it gives you a huge benefit when you're trying to locate fish. Number 3 is learn to cast with both hands. Now, I didn't realize how important that was, and I never realized that I needed to learn how to cast with both hands until I started kayak fishing. But that is so incredibly important. And I remember the exact moment when I realized how beneficial it is to be able to cast with both hands. In fact, I stopped fishing to record my thoughts on learning how to cast with both hands because it was so incredibly important. And when I realized that, I had to share it. Now, I posted that in a video earlier this year. If you haven't seen it, I'll share that with you again right now. It is extremely valuable to learn how to cast both left and right-handed. For years and years, I have always casted right-handed and never really thought too much about it until I was in a kayak, and the wind will start to blow you around in certain directions, but you really want to hit a specific bank when you're fishing or a certain side of a canal, and it becomes a little tricky if you can only cast right-handed. So I've quickly learned how to cast left-handed, and it does take a little bit of practice, but absolutely worth learning if you haven't already. It is very, very difficult to cast with your right hand directly to your right or with your left hand directly to your left. But if you can cast with both hands, it is so much easier to cast across your body than it is directly out from you. So it's really, really nice if you can learn how to cast with both hands. In fact, you want to learn how to cast all the way around your kayak in every direction. Learn how to cast behind you. I can't tell you how many times I've caught a fish by casting, flipping a lure behind me, and because I heard a splash or something like that. You want to be able to hit everywhere around your kayak, and so it's really, really important to learn how to cast with both hands. Now, it can be a little bit tricky at first, but you do it enough and it just becomes natural. I can cast very well with both hands. Now, I can't cast as far with my left hand as I can with my right, but when I'm in a kayak, I can cast well enough where it benefits me to be able to cast with both. All right, number 2 is have your lures and your tackle ready before you start fishing. Now, I'll tell you what I do. Before I ever get on to the water, I go through my tackle boxes and I figure out what lures that I plan on using for the day. And I'll pick out a few different lures, both topwater and some soft plastics, and whatever lures I'm using for the day. And any soft plastics I use, I go ahead and I pre-rig them on to jig heads, and I set them next to me on my kayak. Now, in the Hobie, I have 2 sections right next to me on both sides that are just kind of storage areas, and so I'll just set them there before I even go out onto the water. Now, there's going to be times where you hook up on a fish and they break you off, and it's really, really annoying. But if you have lures ready to go, all you do is you pull that line, you tie it back on, you fling it back out there, and you have a lure back in the water within a minute. It's really, really nice to be able to fish that. Rather than getting your tackle box back out, opening it up, trying to figure out which lure you want to use next, getting a jig head, rigging that up, and then tying that on, you're just wasting a lot of time. Same thing if you're throwing topwaters. If you have it already there and ready, if you break one off or if you get snagged on something and you want to get back to fishing, it's real easy to just tie it back on and throw it back out there. Secondly, you get a lot more fishing done that way. You're not spending so much time looking through tackle boxes and lures and picking them out and setting them all up. If they're pre-rigged and ready to go, well, then you get to spend more time fishing. And when you're out on the water, the more time that you are fishing, the higher chance you have to catch fish. If you're spending a lot of time constantly rigging up new lures and tying on new things and setting up jig heads, well, you're just wasting time that you could be fishing. Time is important on the water, and you want to spend the most time fishing rather than messing with gear. All right, and number one is fish different areas, fish new areas. You don't want to go back to the same exact spot every single week. You want to get out there. You have a kayak. And because you have a kayak, that means that you can go pretty much anywhere. You can go places that a lot of other fishermen can't go. People that are on boats and people that are wade fishing or bank fishing or pier fishing, they're very, very limited to where they can go. But in a kayak, you can pretty much go anywhere, reasonably. And you gain a ton of experience by doing that. And you really learn patterns of fishing and where you should go at different times of the year and different temperatures and different weather conditions and all of that. So get on your kayak, go to different places. You're going to learn a ton by doing that. In fact, go out with friends, go out with other people, see where they're fishing, take them to your spots. It will benefit you so much more to go to different places. Recently, I've seen a lot of people online kind of arguing about fishing spots and fishing areas and things like that. There are tons and tons and tons of places that you can take a kayak. So get out there and explore. Use Google Maps. Figure out where you want to go. Go to somewhere new. I have really tried over the last few months to just constantly pick new locations and new launches and get into new areas. And it's been really, really nice. Some of those days I'll go and I really, really struggle to catch fish. But some days I find places that are just fantastic. I went to a spot last week and I didn't see a single person out there, and it was great fishing all day long. It was fantastic. I loved it. Go out and find all of these new locations. You have a kayak, use it. Use it to your advantage. Get into those areas that nobody else can get to and find some great spots to fish. All right, guys. Well, I hope that these 5 kayak fishing tips help you in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Comment below. Tell me your thoughts. And I appreciate every one of you for watching. Thank you so very much, and we will see you next time.